Hi, this is Patricia. I got a Facebook text from a woman named Maggie Shermer. She runs a Facebook group called Ready, Set, Pour. She's out of Australia, and this is her text message. Hi Patricia, I love your articles that you write for Acrylic.com. I was wondering if you've thought of writing one showing how you do a basic tree embellishment pour. Just a basic silhouette in black so the beginners can follow along easily. More advanced skilled people will know how to add the detail. Just a thought. I love your first article. What else are you thinking of writing? Well, thank you very much, Maggie. That was a huge compliment. Would you like to see who Maggie is? This is Maggie. She's so beautiful. So, taking Maggie's advice, I am going to teach you all how I do a birch tree on a basic pour. So give me a second to set things up and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm not going to use a completely black canvas because I happen to have a couple of canvases that I've made pours on. I'm not real happy with them, but they are dark, and that's part of the reason why that they would be a great candidate to do a birch tree on. So I'm going to show you some of those. My advice to people is when you make a pour that you just can't stand, or you look at it a couple days later and go, what was I thinking? Those are the canvases that you want to save because you'll be able to do some great embellishing on top of them. Here's a sample of one. I thought it was pretty at first, but then the more I looked at it, I just didn't know what to do with it. So this may be one I work on today. A couple of other choices of really bad pours. This was my first attempt at string art, and it looks just kind of yucky. So I could turn it this way perhaps and do some birch trees, but I think this white string effect here in the middle might disrupt all that. So this may not be one that I use. But as you can see, I have a lot of awful pours. Yuck. I don't even know if a birch tree would look good on this pour. I can't seem to find any redeeming value in this pour. It is just zigzaggy and the colors don't complement one another, so maybe something else down the road. I also have this one, which is just awful, awful, awful. So we're going to have to think about which one we're going to use, and meanwhile, I want to show you some of my brushes. I have these scraggly old brushes. I've painted, had to leave my desk for a few minutes and forgot to clean them off or left them overnight, and they have just turned rock hard. Let me try and get this up here. Just hard as can be, can't do anything with them. I don't throw them away because these are excellent for making trees. They make scraggly lines and really gnarly looking branches, so save those awful brushes. But then I also have some really wonderful brushes that I use that I take better care of, and they're really great for fine lining and detailing. I'm especially fond of the number 1, the number 0, and the number 4. The 4 specifically is this flat-tipped, flat-edged square bristle. That's really nice. And then the number 1 that I really like is very, very fine, really pointy, so that's really great. So if you have some brushes, some things you might want to think about. I'm going to pour, or rather squeeze out my paint onto this little contraption here. I'm only going to use black and white. I have an Artist Loft at the moment. I'm going to put some dabs on here and get started, so I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I have decided to go with one of the first ones I showed you, this monstrosity. Not really sure which way I'm going to turn it, but I guess that really doesn't matter since this is just to give you guys an idea of how it's done. Well, perhaps this way. Okay, got my canvas selected. I'm going to turn the camera down here so that you can see what's going on down below. All right, here's my little container. I'll put some white there. I'm going to use a lot of white. And not as much black, but I need to make some gray. So I'll need a little bit over here. And that should do it. And I seem to be missing my palette knife. Let's just get it. Alright, now that I've got my two colors together, or rather on my little Tupperware container, sometimes I need a little water, so I'm just going to spritz some here so that it's available should I need it. And I'm going to start mixing. I want some white over here and a little bit of black because I'm going to make some gray. I may have been a little premature on the water. It's starting to get in my way. So there's my gray. A hefty dose of it. And maybe even a bit more. Now, I'm not going to mix it too much because I kind of like the effect when you put a birch tree on where the black line runs through or the white line runs through if you've not mixed your two paints very well. Kind of gives you striations on the bark, and I like that. So I'm not going to mix it too much. Leave it as is. Put it right there. So let's see, where can you see it at? You can see it right there. Okay. I'm going to start off with one of my crusty, yucky, gross brushes. Go with a nice big one and see what we can do with this white. Start out with some white, and I just make my bark, my trunk. I'm not trying to make it perfect. I'm not trying to make it pretty. I just want a big trunk. And I don't want it to be perfect, but this one's going to have a big branch coming out, and I just kind of do whatever I feel like doing. I'm going to do this specifically to show you how you can change your mind in the middle of making a tree, and it's really very liberating to be able to do that. I want this tree to be rather large for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm demonstrating to you how to make it. So the bigger the better, so that you can follow along. And then also because it's in the foreground. When you have something up front, that indicates that it's bigger. And when you want something to look smaller, you make them thinner, more tiny in the background and shorter. I'm used to painting by my lonesome in complete quiet, so it's a bit of a challenge for me to keep talking to you folks and make sure this is not entirely boring as I try and show you how to do a birch tree. Forgive me if there's lapses and it's you're kind of on your own watching. Okay, there it is. Scraggly looking. There is absolutely nothing perfect about it. Lines running through it, I don't care. I happen to stick some branches in there because I kind of wanted to give it some dimension and teach you how to do this. All right, so there's one. I'm going to also stick another one over there. And this one's going to be perhaps next to it. But it is going to have a bit of a bend, because I think that if you paint all the trees perfectly straight, it doesn't look natural. If you go in any forest, they are leaning every which way. And a birch tree looks really good when it does that too. I'm sure you can hear the sounds that this paintbrush is making on the canvas. That's because it is an old, dried, crusty paintbrush. I wanted a nasty one for this purpose. And by nasty, I don't mean like nasty. I guess I just mean it's not a perfect paintbrush. I want this one to be as big as the other one because, again, it's in the foreground. And you kind of, I'm sure, can see that I'm really just glopping the paint on. I really, really am serious when I say I don't want it to look perfect. There is a second tree right next to it, almost as large, leaning. Now I'm going to do a couple over on the other side and make them thinner so that you know that they are in the background. So I'll just stick one there. And I'm going to have this one kind of coming over. Because they do cross over each other as well. Trying not to get it too wide because I don't want it to look like it's competing with the trees in the foreground. Don't worry about how this blends right now. We'll make it all look good pretty soon. Okay, so there's a couple going in the background there. I think we need one more. It looks kind of lonely. I'm going to try and get some of this paint onto the edge. Of my brush and just go straight up. I'm going to have this one lean as well, but not as far. It's not going to touch the other tree, but it's just going to lean. I promise, Maggie, I'm going to make this simple to follow, I hope. Okay, there are two trees in the foreground. Let me bring that up just a hair. 2 trees in the foreground and 3 trees in the background. We'll stop right there. All right, I'm putting this one down, and I'm going to go for, do I want this other scraggly one? I think I want one with a little bit of movement in it, so I'm going to switch brushes to one that actually is in good shape. Can you see this one? It is in good shape, and it's bendy and pliable. And I want to do the gray now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these trees and apply gray to the right-hand side, going all the way up. I'm going to try and do it 50-50. I may accomplish that, I may not, but I don't really care. It can be sloppy. The sloppier, the more realistic it is. So I'm getting my gray. I'm going to go back to my original tree. Start with that one first and just bring on the gray. Not sure if you can see this or not. I'll check with my camera in just a second and I'll give you a close-up if I need to. Can you see that gray? I hope you can. I'm going to add a little bit more paint mixture over here because I used a lot of paint already. I thought I was just going to do one tree and show you how to do one tree, but I knew that wouldn't give you a true visual of birch, so I kind of went and did a few more. So now that I've got some more white here, I'm going to add it to my gray, which is where I really need it now. And get some black in there, mix that up. And I may even use my palette knife for the next one to show you, because you can do that as well. A lot of people prefer to paint with the palette knife. For me, it was just a way to get some of the gray off my palette knife. Okay, let's go back to our brush again. I'm going to put a few pieces of gray over here on this limb. few on this limb. Can you see all that? All right, let's go do these little ones. I want to try not to make these little trees any wider because I do want them to look like they're in the background. Give us perspective. I need to have them thinner. So there's always a way to correct it if I mess up, but if you're just starting out, you're probably worried about that kind of stuff. Once you've done these a while, done a couple of them, you learn that the messier they are, the better. All right, so we have gray on all the trees. Hopefully you can see all this. And now I'm going to switch to my zero brush. This is my zero round. Let's see, can you see that? Zero round. Makes nice straight lines. So I'm dipping into the black and I'm just going to start making some lines. I want absolutely no pattern. I want these to be as random as can be. Some are going to have this little line coming up out of a center. Some are going to go down. Some are just going to be completely straight. I'm going to do a couple and then I'll bring the camera closer so you can see what I'm talking about. There. Couple lines. Some have a piece going up, some have a piece going down. Again, random. I'm even going to draw a black line here along the edge. And the paint is very, very gloppy. I like acrylic painting because of that effect. I like that 3D effect that it gives. Watercolor obviously is just thin and wispy, and I've never tried oil, but acrylic, boy, it just gives you that really great 3D effect, and I like that. I'm making different letters, a lot of L's, some W's maybe, just because I want these black lines to look extremely random. I have to make them quite thick and pronounced on the bigger trees because, again, these bigger trees are in the foreground. I want you to look at this painting and go, yes, these trees are in the front. I get that. And the way you achieve that is by making things clearer and bigger. Things at the back are going to be more fuzzy, thinner, hard to see. Let you have another look at what I'm doing. Do you see a pattern? Nope, but it is starting to look like a birch tree, isn't it? Okay, continue this one. I'm going to go over here. As I get to a branch like this that starts to get thinner, I'm a little bit more inclined to use the black exclusively because I want to show that the branch is getting thinner and thinner, and the best way to do that is with the black. show you what I just did right there. Again, all this will make a little bit more sense once you see as we progress. But I hope you're looking at this and saying, ah, I can do that. I can so do that. Matter of fact, I'm going to go get a ugly acrylic pour painting that I have that's been sitting in the garage or sitting on my shelf that I don't like at all, and I'm going to resurrect it. I sure appreciate Maggie asking me to do this because, you know, I just love drawing trees, and that doesn't mean that everybody else does, and it certainly doesn't mean everybody else wants to do them or even wants to buy one. But if you're going to be good at something, I think it needs to be something that you enjoy, and I absolutely love trees, so I like painting them as well. I think I get better and better because I do them so often. If I sit around and talk about what I want to do and don't actually do it, well then how am I going to get good at it, right? Okay, I'm taking this black up here again and going to make myself a little tiny branch. These zero brushes are really excellent for making these little tiny branches. All right, look at that one. See all those little black branches there? They get lost in the forest, but if you don't put them in now, you may forget to do so. So I'm on to this other big one. And I'll probably come back to this and do some more stuff, but I just want to keep it the same pattern so that you can see that I do the white first, then I do the gray on the right-hand side, then I come in with the black to make this peeled bark effect that birch trees have. I don't know if you know where birch trees can be located, but it's mostly, I think, on the East Coast. I've seen them in Virginia and Massachusetts and Ohio, I believe. But I live in Florida now, so I don't see them anymore, but I sure did see them growing up. And Colorado has some beautiful aspen trees, and they're similar, but I've not tried painting those yet. Maybe that'll be my next one. From there, having the camera so far away from where I'm at, it should look like a birch tree. Well, let's stop there for just a second. So here we are, just progressing along, getting some of these black bark effects on the trunk of the tree. And it is just a straight line, a squiggly line, some going up, some going down. Now, this is where we're at right now. And look at it from a distance. I'd say it looks almost like a birch tree. I'm going to leave it this way so that I can do these other trees over here. And I don't want these black lines to be as pronounced. I want them to be thinner because they are in the background. I'll go back over the ones up here and put more detail in. But right now I just want to get a little bit of black over here so you can see quickly what happens when you have trees crossing over each other and how you keep that detail going. I'm going very quickly, but you know what? Even if I wasn't recording this, I would probably be painting just as quickly because I don't want it to look perfect. I don't want it to look like I spent 4 weeks working on it. I want it to look like the birch trees do out in the woods. Nothing in nature is perfect. Therefore, my trees should not be perfect. I think they can be perfectly lovely, but not perfect. All right, did a few branches on those trees over there. I've got one crossing over the other. We're starting to get the effect here. Now we're going to switch to white. I'm going to wipe off my brush just a bit. And I am going to take one of my scrubby brushes. Nope, not that one. This one is nice and hard. So I'm going to take the white and make some of the same dramatic lines that I made with the black. I'm glopping it on. I want it thick and chunky. Now up here what I'm doing is where I found those black tiny branches that I made, I'm simply going over them and highlighting a little bit on the left side, trying to keep mostly black, but putting a little white there just so that you can see where they're going. I am going to have some solid black ones, but I want some accentuation here. I watch other videos where people just talk and talk and talk and guide you through everything they're doing, and I think to myself, how in the world do they do that? I think I'd lose my focus. And here I am doing it myself. Maybe that's why I chose to do birch trees, because that doesn't require a lot of thought. Okay, these have now big white lines in between some of the big black lines. And then see what I've done to the branches out there? Put a little bit of white on them. Okay. I'm going to go back to these little ones. Well, I still see a couple places here that need it. Let me put some there. Alright, I'm turning my canvas around so I can do some of these little white lines over here. Again, I have to be a little bit thinner, well actually quite a bit thinner over here, to keep up the illusion that these are in the background. All right, there we go. Now the only thing left to do is double check it and see what else I need. And I believe I need some more black on these ones in the foreground. So let me go back over and add a few more. I think it's filling in a little bit better now. Have more black in here. You probably wouldn't look at this and think that there were so many layers on it, but of course that's what makes a good painting, I think. Let's see what I've got here. Let me turn that a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. And I think the only thing left to do is add some gray. So I've got my gray over here, and I'm going to do the exact same thing I've been doing. I'm going to draw some gray lines in there. All of this is going to give it more realism. So I'm going to challenge you to find an ugly pour, something that you really despise. It doesn't have to have a green background. It can be pink. It can be anything. And practice. Try and do this. And then show us what you've got. You can go to acrylicpouring.com and post a photo, or you can go to the Facebook group, Acrylic Pouring. That's the Debbie Coles group. And tell us that this is your birch tree as inspired by the video by Patricia Fuller on acrylicpouring.com. I'm not raising money for charity or anything, just so that I'll know that you've done it. If you tag me in it, I'll know to go find it. If I'm not tagged, I may not see it. You know, there's what, like 50 million subscribers there to that group. It'd be hard to find. Now, I'm sure you can see now all the detail. The white, the black, and the gray striations against a white tree with gray shading on the right side. So, I could go further and I could paint the whole forest, but per Maggie's suggestion, I'm just kind of give you the brief introduction on how to do it. If you'd like more details, if you'd like some help with it, feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. The only thing I have left to show you is a finished product of another birch tree forest that I did, and I'll show that to you in just a second. So this is a birch tree forest that I did a while ago, again on a canvas that I was not happy with. And you see all these green leaves up here? I didn't even paint those in. That was just part of the forest. I will typically go back in to a birch tree forest and paint some trees in, but in this one I didn't even bother. Let me just show you. That's all from the original acrylic pour, all that green. And do you see how the birch trees look? Exactly like the other one, completely random. See how I've got trees crossing over in the back? This one goes in front, then behind that one, goes behind this tree, it brings branches out. I've got the black branches, the white branches. The big trees in the front are large. The ones in the back are thinner. So you've got this one that I've completed, and this one that we just did together. Kind of give you an idea. If I work on this one a little bit more, I will figure out a way to incorporate this little black splotch here and maybe make it look like a river or something. But hopefully you can see the possibilities. So that's it for another segment of how I do things. Hope you enjoyed it, and please feel free to leave comments. Let me know what you think. Happy pouring.